Hello and welcome to Driver Focus. Now we've had the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix and we're going to do a quick driver rating. Before we start that, one thing to get off my chest. FIA, what are you doing? They get a 0 out of 10. Let's just start there. 0 out of 10. I mean, shocking. What are they playing at? Alonso gets a penalty for a start line infringement. Basically, he was off to the left of the start box by a bit, but he's not exactly ahead of the line where you should be starting. There's no advantage gained. We've seen Ocon get the same penalty in Bahrain last weekend. Have the drivers been told why we're suddenly getting these penalties for something like this? He then got the 5-second penalty for that. And then we had the fiasco of that penalty not being served correctly. Now, Ocon had the same issue last time out, but Alonso, apparently they started work, as they wanted to call it, once the rear jack touches the back of the car. According to the FIA, work started, and they didn't wait 5 seconds for that. He was then handed a 10-second penalty at the end, so George Russell was in third place for a few hours. Aston Martin appealed, they were successful, and Alonso is back in third place. I mean, talk about childish school play, that, isn't it? I mean, ridiculous. If you're going to make a decision, stand by it. But we'll see. I'm sure they'll clarify the rules upon that point. It is slightly vague because it says once work is done. So what does that classify as? Touching it with the rear jack, is that start as work? Technically, yes, I suppose, given you've only got 2 seconds of actually getting the jack up and tyres changing off, there you go. So it's, you know, every small detail counts with this. So I guess potentially if it's just ready under there and just this matter of lifting it, is that, or is the action of actually rolling it under and lifting it all work? You know, I think they just say you can't touch the car, and I think that's what they would probably just say. And we get rid of this headache. But I mean, penalty, no penalty, back to fourth after he's had all the podium celebration. It took them 35 laps to give that decision for Alonso's penalty. What were they waiting for all that time? It was quite clear you were going to give it straight away. Because he touched the car, or you weren't. I mean, what were you deliberating about? 35 laps? Ridiculous. Just get on with it. Make the decision. Let them sort it out on the track. If he'd given him 10-second penalty, he might have gained that gap. We'd have no problems whatsoever on Russell. Game over. Sorted. He knows where he stands in the race. You can't wait 35 laps and say, actually, now at the end, it's all sorted. We're going to give you a 10-second penalty. Immensely drop down. It's just ridiculous. They need to sort that out, and they can't carry on with stuff like that. So, I mean, they should give a -10 out of 10, not even 0 out of 10. They really know how to mess the show, don't they, the FIA at the moment. But anyway, rant over. That went on a bit too long, doesn't it? So we'll start from the back. Lance Stroll, he was retired on lap 17. Up until that point, he did an okay job. I think the strategy messed him up, didn't it? He pitted early, went onto the hards, and the undercut didn't work. He came out behind the 2 Ferraris actually after that. So can't really. What can we give him? 5 out of 10. It's a bit harsh, that, isn't it? Alex Albon, he retired on lap 27. He had a issue with his brakes. Before that, he was doing quite well at one point. So, you know, we can't really rate him either, can we, suppose? But we'll give him 6 out of 10. Bottas, next. He started in P14. He was out-qualified by his teammate, Joe Guanzu's actually started this season well. He was under a lot of criticism from me before this. But he's done alright, but they just had no pace. I mean, he was so far from the back, even from Lando. Norris, who was about 30 seconds back from him, so much so that he even went on the radio and said, look, is there any damage on the car? And they just come back and said no. I'm not sure what the issue is, but his strategy was really, really bad. Medium, hard, medium, and then softs. I mean, he was probably one of the other drivers to go on 2 stops, apart from anyone that pitted for broken wings, McLaren. It was a really poor weekend from Valtteri, and hopefully he can sort things out for Australia, but 4 out of 10 for him. Lando Norris, he made a poor qualifying mistake. Expect better from him. He was set 19th. Even the best makes mistakes. Everybody's done it in qualifying, so I can't be too harsh on that. But he's the lead driver in that. There's pressure on him, and Piastri is doing a good job there for him at the moment. They had a poor race in Bahrain, and it was doubly poor in Saudi Arabia very, very quickly for him. Lap 2 pit stop for a broken wing again, and then he just ran at the back the whole time. Struggled to make any impression on Logan Sargent. The team even told him to let Piastri through and don't battle him, just so that he can get after him, but he lost out to his teammate and couldn't get past Sargent even in the end. So a weekend to forget for Norris. Really, really bad. I'm going to give him a 4 out of 10 on that one. Logan Sargent, he had a poor qualifying actually. His first lap in Q1 got deleted, and that really messed with his head. He started in 19th, but he did quite well on the start. He was running in the top 13 at one point, and after the safety car, he was one of the few drivers, like with Lewis Hamilton, who was on the mediums in that second strategy. Had a long way to go on them, but did well for a fair amount of time. Did well to hold off Lando Norris in the end with tyres that were really gone, and finished on that Williams. But he's showing good racecraft, and he really did well there. And he finished where you probably would expect the car to finish, the Williams, but a 6 out of 10 for him. Really pulled it around in the race. Piastri, he did a brilliant job in qualifying, started in P8. But it all went wrong in the race. Lap 1 incident, not really his fault, where he got clipped by Gasly, and that was his race almost finished, and then he just ran at the back then, didn't he, from there, and McLaren no pace. But he beat his teammate, and he did a good job showing his racecraft at that point, so a 7 out of 10 for him. Nick De Vries started 18th, did well in the race, moved up and finished in P14, 10 seconds behind his teammate, which is not bad for his second race, but he was disappointed with the race. He felt he just wasn't aggressive enough at the start and the restart with getting his tyres ready, and that sort of cost him, but then he was just stuck in the middle of the DRS train. He had some good battles. His strategy didn't work out as well as his teammates, but he did move up positions from his start place, so I'll give him a 6 out of 10. Zhou Guanyu had a really good qualifying, beats his teammate. He started in P12, he finished the race in P13, but given where Valtteri was, he did a decent job considering how poor Valtteri was struggling with the car. It looked like he could get into the points at one point, but then the safety car came out, and that really put him back in the pack, and he just couldn't make any passes from there. He finished in P13. He was disappointed with his race, a 6 out of 10 for him. Nico Hülkenberg qualified well again. He was started in the top 10, but his race just went backwards, didn't it? After the pits, he came out behind his teammate in P12, and that was it. He tried to hunt down his teammate, tried to pass Zhu, couldn't make it work, but after a disappointing race in Bahrain, their car does look better, the Haas, and they are in the midfield battle where it just looks like they might be struggling at the back in Bahrain. But a 6 out of 10 for Hülkenberg. Yuki Tsunoda, he started in P16. It was a difficult and disappointing qualifying for the team, but he did well in the race. He made the biggest gains in the safety car. 8 places he made up when that came out, and he was running the top 10 or 10th. And it looked like he could hold on. He held off Magnussen for a fair bit. I mean, Magnussen went for a sloppy pass but couldn't make the move on him. But unfortunately his tyres just run off and he couldn't hold on to that point. He was massively disappointed. But considering where the car is, he did quite a good job to get it that far up. But I'm giving him a 7 out of 10 because he did really well to up until that point of Magnussen. There's not an awful lot you can do sometimes when the tyres are just gone. K-Mag started in 13th. He was out qualified by Nico Hülkenberg, and he was disappointed with that. But he got some points, a point for Haas after last weekend. It's a brilliant result. He was on older tyres than Yuki Tsunoda as well when he made that pass. But they had really good tyre deck, which is really positive news for Haas going forward. He did make, he could have got past Yuki Tsunoda earlier, sorry, but he made a really sloppy pass, ran wide, and then had to gain back up on Yuki and made the pass for P10. But apart from that sloppy moment in the race, he had quite a decent race. Some points finish. I'm going to give him an 8 out of 10 for that. Next, we go on to the Alpines. Pierre Gasly started in 9th, finished in 9th. He touched Piastri in the early start of the race. It was very minimal touch, not too much damage to his car, and it was just an lonely race. They were comfortably ahead of the Haas behind him in P10. Couldn't really make any inroads on the Ferraris ahead, or in much of a battle with his teammate, actually, either Ocon. But it's his second race with the team. He's getting his hands, get steady with that one, and it's the best he could do, really. Close to his teammate throughout the race. A 7 out of 10 for Gasly. Ocon started in P6 and had a good qualifying performance. He finished in P8 ahead of his Gasly. Again, a solid point, good points for the team. 7 out of 10 for him. Not much to talk about in his race. Charles Leclerc, he started in P12, had a good qualifying getting into P2, but then the 10th place penalty for the engine. I expected him to do a lot better in getting further up the field. At one point he was up into 5th place. He made some good moves on Ocon, Hamilton and Stroll, and he was up to 5th by lap 15, and it was sort of good progress, and you expected the Ferraris to kick on from there. But after the safety car came out, the team didn't tell him he could push between the safety car lines. He came out behind Hamilton, and then from there on they just lost pace. He'd be really, really disappointed with that. He made no impression on his teammate ahead, and was comfortably ahead of the Alpines. But poor race pace from them. He'll be a 6 out of 10. Very disappointed for the Ferraris. Expected better, to be honest with you. Carlos Sainz started in 4th, finished in 6th. He lost out to Stroll at the start, and then was running 5th right behind him. But Ferrari did well in the pits, actually. Good strategy move for once for the Ferraris. They made a dummy move to come into the pits. That suckered Stroll into the pits for his stop. They carried on, and the overcut actually worked here in Saudi Arabia. Normally helps when there's low deg. And they both Ferraris passed him. He got past Stroll. Safety car came out. Unfortunately, everybody ahead of him then got cheap pit stops. He came out 5th. Verstappen got him quite easily, and then he was passed by Hamilton, which was a good move by Hamilton, and then finished in 6th place. A 6 out of 10 for him. I'd kind of expected them to hold off the Mercedes, but Sainz just didn't really have a great weekend all weekend. Hamilton just didn't get on top of the car. He said he was disconnected with the car all weekend, which is not good at all, is it, really? Especially in a high-speed, twisty way, you really have to be at one with the car where the walls are right when you need to be. I'll have the trust in the car to really show it. He had a poor qualifying, was out qualified by his teammate. Even in the race, he went on an opposite strategy. He started on the hards, and then when the safety car came, it kind of looked like it would really work out for him. He went on to the mediums. He was out of sync with everybody on the hards, so he thought he'd have the better tyre. He made a good move on Sainz, so made the most of it at that point. And then was about a second behind Russell, got into the DRS zone, but then Russell just seemed to be able to just pump in some laps, and he just couldn't hold on to him from that point. And then, yeah, steady race, finished in 5th place. 6 out of 10 for Lewis this weekend. He'll be disappointed, to be honest, and hopefully bounce back in Australia. George Russell, he had a good qualifying, finished in P3, beat the faster Ferraris and the Aston of Sainz and Stroll. and he did well to keep Alonso behind, to be honest, at the early part. And Sainz comfortably behind, didn't do much. He was past 5. Verstappen, there's not a lot you can do with there. Safety car came out, he was in 4th, took the pressure well of Hamilton at that point, and then was in a steady race. He finished just 5 seconds behind Alonso, so good race pace from George Russell, and the Mercedes showing good pace in the race. Some positivity from them, but there's no way you're going to get or catch the Red Bulls, and they are too slow for the Aston Martins at that point. But a 9 out of 10 for George Russell. I thought he had a good weekend, solid points. He was in P3 for a few hours, so a podium, but that got reversed after the FIA fiasco, and they're messing about. But decent points for Mercedes. Alonso started P2 after Charles Leclerc's penalty, had a brilliant start and got into the lead. He then got the Sainz 5-second penalty, but there's probably no way anybody could hold off the Red Bulls. Had a solid race, did well to hold off Perez for a little while. They had a bit of a battle, but they were just too quick. Got beat by Verstappen also, but I think the Red Bulls are in a league of their own. He had the 5-second penalty. The safety car felt really well for him, actually, because he could serve his 5-second penalty dead cheap. He managed to hold his place ahead of Russell in 3rd because of that, and that was a big moment for him. It's a shame for us fans, actually, we didn't get to see the battle between Alonso and Russell, but once he was ahead of Russell, he managed to stay in a comfortable place. I think he just managed the car to the end. He did say, obviously, Alonso seems in a happy place at the moment. He took that penalty quite well with the 5 seconds early on, and then even after, just to say, look, he's got 4th place off the podium, he was just saying, look, I'm happy, I'm celebrated on the podium, I've got my trophy, I've got the picture, I'm 3 points down, and that's it. But obviously that's all sorted, but he seems in a happy place, and I'm going to give him an 8 out of 10. Verstappen started in P15, finished in P2. He made slow progress at the start, to be honest. I expected him to be a lot closer up. Did struggle at the early points and make moves. But one by one, I think as the field spread out, the DRS on that Red Bull is absolutely mega. They just seem to go in like rocket ship mode once that DRS flaps open. It's like they've got the NOS button, haven't they, on that Red Bull? Not a DRS button. And off he flew. I thought he would do better, to be honest, after the safety car, because he was then only 5 seconds behind Perez, and it just looked like it'd be a matter of time for him to hunt Perez down and off for the win, which would have been a brilliant move even for him. He had some gremlins. He was complaining about the drive shaft noise, he thought it was, or a noise he was getting at high speed. But obviously there was no issues because he set the fastest lap of the race and keeps the championship lead. But he made up for a disappointing qualifying and good recovery there, to be honest with you. Although I expected him to be in a better battle with Perez. But a 9 out of 10 for him. And Sergio Perez started first, finished first. His only blip of the race actually was the start. He got passed by Alonso there, but then he made the move and then off he went. And I thought at the safety car point, this is where, you know, the real test for him came in. But he did a brilliant job holding off Verstappen, and then he kept the gap at about 5 seconds. It dropped under that to about 4.5, 4.4 at one point in the race, but then got it back up to about 6, so comfortable ahead of Verstappen. Showed good pace. He was disappointed, and he will be disappointed he didn't get the fastest lap he was holding on to at one point, and he will be disappointed with the team not saying, look, Verstappen's on a fastest lap, or tried to push for it, because they both sort of said just keep it steady and finish the race with the team's position, but they sort of said whole station pumping a set time. Verstappen was going his own way. Bit confusing from the Red Bull team wall there, but you can kind of tell that they lean towards Verstappen, and why would you not? He's a 2-time world champion. But this season it's going to be a battle between the two Red Bulls, and hopefully we get an in-team championship fight like we've seen with Rosberg and Hamilton a few years back. bring some spice to the championship. But a brilliant job from Sergio Perez, and I'm giving him a 10 out of 10. Fantastic job there. And off we go to Australia next. It's a very early start for us here in the UK. Normally is a brilliant race there, but next time out, let's see how we get on. Thanks very much for watching. Please like, subscribe and comment. I'll see you in the next video.